एक ओंकार सतनाम करता पुरख निरभव निर्वैर अकाल मूर्त जुनी सहब अंगुर प्रसाद जप आज सच जुगा सच है भी सच नानक होसी भी सच एक अद्वितीय गुरु नानक देवा ओंकार गुरु अंगद देवा सतनाम गुरु अमर प्यारे करता रामदास गुरबारे पुरख श्री अर्जुन सुखदानी निरभव हर गोविंद गुण खानी निर्वैर गुरु है श्री हर राय काल मूर्त कृष्ण त्याय अर्जुनी तेग बहादुर राय सहब अंगुर दसमें सहाय गुर प्रसाद ग्रंथ गुरु ज्ञाना वाहे गुरु बंदन भगवाना गुरु ग्रंथ कल जुग पयो श्री गुरु रूप मान 10 पातशाह यह रूप है गुरु ग्रंथ जी जान पूर्ण देखियो आत्मा द्वैत सर्व निवार पै शांत मन शांत ते पद नमो हमार कहा बुद्ध प्राप्त उच्च हमारी बन सके मैं मौजो धारी हम न सकता से तुम्हारी आप ले हो तुम खासदारी सो कहो टल गुरु सेविय अहनिश सहज सभाय दर्शन पश्य गुरु के जन्म मरण दुख जाय दर्शन पश्य गुरु के जन्म मरण दुख जाय।
सतनाम श्री वाहिगुरु साहिब जी। सोचै सोच न होवे जे सोची लख वार चुपै चुप न होवे जे लाए रहा लिवतार भुखिया भुख न उतरी जे बन्ना पुरिया पार सैस सियान पा लख होए ता एक न चले नाल किव सचारा होइए किव कूड़े टुटे पाल हुक्म रचाई चलना नानक लिखिया नाल।
वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह। गुरु रूप satsang वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह। We're going to continue on with the definitions of the Sri Japji Sahib. Within the last video we started the Katha of the first body, and within the definitions we went through the first 5 questions that were asked to Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji with regards to can a person obtain God through remaining hygienically clean? Can a person obtain God through deliberation? Can a person obtain God through focus? Can a person obtain God through dispassion? And can a person obtain God through remaining silent? So we've answered those questions. We're now going to go on to the 6th question, and this video will probably just focus on this one bhakti and a couple of stories to make people understand. So we'll continue on from here. 1%.
Bhukhiya Bhukh na utri je banna puriya par.
Bhukhiya Bhukh na utri. It says here, Guru Nanak Dev Ji states that look, through remaining hungry, through remaining without food, to go without food does not bring a person closer to God. Even if a person was to starve themselves and not have anything for a long period of time, 100,000s of times, it still does not bring them closer. Now here, the book that they're talking about is the desire, is the greed of an individual. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji is saying is through wanting, through giving up and abstaining from having anything does not bring a person close, because mentally there's still desire. It is very difficult to find an individual in this world who has not got any greed. Everybody has a certain element of greed. They will look to accumulate money. They will look to accumulate assets. They will look to, by any hook or crook, just be rich and be materialistic. Those people who have given up all of their worldly attachments will still have some sort of attachment, still sort of book, some sort of desire. And so Gurbani states that Bhukhiya Bhukh na utre galli Bhukh na jaye Nanak Bhukha tar jai ja guna kahe guna samaya. And basically, the individual remains hungry all the time, hungry for more. They're never satisfied. Nobody's ever satisfied. And there are a number of stories to make you understand that. There's, one of the stories that appears within the Veds, the Purans, is the story of Sukadev Muni. And I'll just say this in brief, but Sukadev Muni was a child of Rishi Vedvyas. And Sukadeva Muni was able to have the knowledge of his previous lives in the way to the imperceptible by Sant Vyam Singh Ji, Ratwala Sahib Wale. They go into great depth in describing the life of Sukadeva Muni, his past, his previous life, the punishment he had to endure in order to become a human being, why he spent 12 years in the womb of his mother, who he was, and where he got his vidya from, where he got his knowledge from. Sukadeva Muni, although he was taught by his father, was Rishi Vedvyas, who was well versed and one of the most sacred of rishis within the Sanatana faith, he was sent to go and learn from Raja Janak. Now there's a number of Raja Janaks that appear in history. This isn't the same Raja Janak who was the father of Sita. According to Gyani Amar Singh, they wrote a book in Sanskrit, which is mentioned by Sant Gyani Gurbachan Singh Ji within the Sahib Katha. And within that he names the 23 different Janaks. And he states that Janak was a title, it was a name given to the king of a certain specific land. In the same way that the Gurus took on the pen name of Nanak, they all took on the pen name of Nanak, even though they had their own distinct identities. Bhagat Ramanandji of the Bairagis, there were many Ramanands, he wasn't the only one. So again, this is all written about within the Sanskrit text. And here, Raja Janak was a great saint who had learnt everything from Astavakar. Astavakar was an individual who had 8 bends within his body. He came to Raja Janak in order to free his father who had been imprisoned. And at the same time he gave Brahmgyana, gave divine knowledge to Raja Janak. And this can be found in the Astavakar Gita, which is still available today. Raja Janak was a divine soul. A divine soul, so much so that Muslim Fani and other people like that, including within the Sri Guru Pratap Suraj Granth, parallels are drawn between Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji and Raja Janak. And some people believe that Raja Janak was a previous manifestation of Guru Nanak Dev Ji. That isn't the case, but there are parallels drawn because both of them saved a large portion of society from the netherworlds. But what happened was Raja Janak was a king, and Sukadeva Muni, Pandit Sukadeva, had been told to go and learn from this king. Now Sukadeva Muni was a rishi, so he wore minimal clothing, carried a kamandal and a chippi. Those are the two things he carried. So he carried a water vessel and a stick with him wherever he went, walking stick. And he went and stayed with Raja Janak, and Raja Janak said, right, I'll give you Brahmgyan, it's not a problem, I'll give you knowledge, give you divine knowledge. And during that time, he said, you are to sit here and not do anything, not to move, not to do anything at all. Raja Janak started to give divine knowledge to Sukadeva Muni. And Sukadeva Muni was quite apprehensive. He was a sadhu and a rishi, and he was going to go to a wealthy king to learn about the truth of life. So Raja Janak started to give his discourse. And while he was giving the discourse, one of his servants came in and told the king that the palace was on fire. The king carried on. Raja Janak carried on with his discourse. It did not stop. And then a short time later, another person came and said, actually, the fire has now spread to your treasure trove and everything has been burnt. Raja Janak continued on. And then the third time, an individual came and said, look, the fire is spreading to this specific area. At that point, Sukadeva Muni heard this and realised that he'd left his kamandal and chippi there. So he got up to go and get it, and then came and sat back down. And when he did that, Raja Janak stopped the discourse. And Sukadeva Muni asked why. He said, well, he goes, I've had my servants come up to me and explain that the palace is on fire, all my things are being destroyed, and I didn't care. I was engrossed within Brahmgyan, within divine knowledge. and giving that to you. And you got up because of a stick and a water vessel. So who here is the one stuck in attachment? You came here with the skepticism that I am the one stuck in attachment, but it's actually you. And it showed there that even the money, who stated he was exempt from attachment, was still attached to those two little items, which we would consider nothing. And there was a book there, a desire there. There's a couple of stories within the tikas that come up. One is an allegorical story to do with Alexander the Great. The allegorical story is given that Alexander the Great had defeated and conquered all the lands in the known world. And due to this he grew tired. He grew tired of dominating the world and he wanted another challenge. And it was only then that somebody said, why don't you, if you've conquered all of the lands, why don't you look to conquer all the seas? Why don't you go to war with the sea, with the deities of the sea? At the time, obviously, the Greeks believed in Poseidon. The Varandevta is mentioned within the Hindu faiths. Khwaja is the water deity within the Islamic faiths. So they said, why not go to war? So, this is an allegorical story. This didn't actually take place, but there is an element of reasoning behind this. And Sikandar Badshah, Alexander the Great, takes his troops. They go with all their weapons, and they go to the edge of the sea, where they start shooting projectiles and arrows into the sea. And at that point, Varandevta appeared, and Alexander the Great said, "Look, we've come to wage war with you." And the water deity said, "Well, what is it that you want?" And he said, "Well, we want the riches of your land, of the sea." And there was a number of riches then brought forward by the water deity. He brought forward a platter, and the platter was full of jewels and emeralds, and that was handed over to Alexander. Alexander then left. He was content, and then again he realised that the sea is massive, it is vast, and all he was handed was a platter, and he felt that he had been cheated. And he went back and he did exactly the same again, and this time the water deity appeared, and he just threw, and he didn't want to go to war, and he just threw from the sea endless amounts of priceless gems. And Alexander still wasn't content. He was like, well, how am I supposed to take this back? A dinghy was given, and through the dinghy being, it was, like I said, this is an allegorical story, the dinghy never filled up. They continued to put more and more and more in there, it never filled up. And the story was that basically, it didn't matter how many riches that Alexander had. He could have taken the platter, he could have taken some more. He had more than anybody on the earth, but he was never content. He still continued to have that book, and even though a person can say, actually, this is all I want, and Alexander was saying he just wanted some riches. He got the riches, but he still wasn't content with the riches. He had to have more. He had to have more. So even kings are never happy. State owners, people in power, those individuals just want more and more power, more and more wealth, more and more status. So that's the first story given about the individuals who are greedy. The second one is a story that appears in all the tikas in various forms. There is a mention of a saint in some, a mention of Shiva in the other. It is found in the tika of Sant Gyani Gurbachan Singh, found in the tika of Sant Kirpal Singh Ji Sato Galiwale, and found in the tika, the Katha Saror, I think it is, by Surdite Singh. And within that, the story goes that there was an individual who used to spend a lot of congregation time with the saints. And whilst with the saints, he desired all the fruits of life, all the merits of life. So through serving the saint daily, or serving Shiva daily, that the saint had realised this and thought, I need to please this individual, so he did. And the saint provided 4 candles to the devotee. He said to him, look, here are 4 candles, and these are for you. Because of the amount you have served, I'm giving these as a reward to you. And through this you'll be able to fund your life forever and all the lives of your children. And he was advised what happens is you take the candles home, you walk in a certain direction with a lit candle, and where the candle goes out, you then start digging, and from underneath the ground you'll find riches. So the advice was given, these are the 4 candles, do that. However, the sadhu said, look, you can use the ones to go to the north, the east and the west, but do not, whatever you do not use the one that goes south. So the disciple agreed and he left. And once leaving, he got home and all of a sudden thoughts took over his mind. He just thought to himself, I want to know more about these candles. I want to know more about these riches that have been promised to me. So he took the first candle, lit it, and walked in a northerly direction. And where the candle, where the flame went out, he dug the ground. Digging the ground, he found loads and loads of silver coins. So what he did was he marked the area, he covered the silver coins so nobody else could take them, and went home and realised he was wealthy now. Realised he was wealthy and thought, this is absolutely brilliant. And he thought to himself, if that's the type of wealth that's held by one of these candles, well, let's try the second one. So the greed then took over. Didn't matter how much he had from the first lot of loot, greed then took over. He did the same, went in an easterly direction with the candles, and when he dug everything up, he found lots of gold. So again he did the same thing, came back, intrigue took over again, and then he lit the third one and went all the way, and then he found even more riches. He found jewels, priceless jewels, and then he came back home. And he sat there deliberating, thinking, the sadhu gave me 4 candles, but he's only told me that I can light 3 of them, so what's the reason for this? And he thought to himself, maybe the sadhu is trying to keep the riches for himself on the 4th one. Maybe he doesn't want the disciple to have them. And he felt an element of mistrust. So what he did then was he then lit the 4th candle and went in a southerly direction. When he went in a southerly direction, he dug the ground and found a staircase going down. So he followed the staircase going down. When he got downstairs, he saw that it was a room which was covered in gold. And there was an individual there working. And the individual was working away on a grindstone, grinding flour, grinding wheat. And then the individual went up to this male and said, can you tell me where, I got these from a saint, can you tell me where the riches are? I've come to collect them. And then the person who was grinding at the millstone got up and said, okay, you sit here and carry on working on the millstone and I'll get you what you need. And he started to walk away, and then this individual who had walked down there, who'd been given the candles by a saint, started shouting and asked, well, where are you going? And he said, he goes, I too am like you. I was greedy. The sadhu told me not to use the 4th candle as well, but I did. And by using the 4th candle, I ended up coming down here, taking over the grindstone from another person, and they left. He goes, and now I will be leaving. And this is what happens if you are too greedy. You should have been content with the silver, the gold, and the jewels, but you weren't. You had skepticism upon your guru, on the sadhu, and because of that you've ended up here. And the moral of that story is that a person who ends up in such a situation where greed takes over, they're never content. And like I said, Gurbani states it, saying, Bhukhiya Bhukh na utre, Galli Bhukh na jaye, Nanak Bhukha Tar Jai Jagun Ke Guni Samay. You know, that's the case, that a person is never content. They will always want more. They will always desire more. And those are the those are the couple of sakya to go with that line, that Pankti. So that was the 6th question that was asked to Guru Nanak Dev Ji. Guru Nanak Dev Ji said, by remaining, to not eat, to not have desire, will not extinguish the internal desires that an individual has, and it will not prevent them from coming out as well. So Kamalpreet Singh, if you can read the Gurbani, and we'll wait for the next video now.
ਸੋਚੈ ਸੋਚ ਨ ਹੋਵੇ ਜੇ ਸੋਚੀ ਲੱਖ ਵਾਰ ਚੁੱਪੈ ਚੁੱਪ ਨ ਹੋਵੇ ਜੇ ਲਾਇ ਰਹਾ ਲਿਵਤਾਰ ਭੁਖਿਆ ਭੁਖ ਨ ਉਤਰੀ ਜੇ ਬੰਨਾ ਪੁਰੀਆ ਪਾਰ ਸੈਸ ਸਿਆਣ ਪਾ ਲੱਖ ਹੋਏ ਤਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਨ ਚੱਲੇ ਨਾਲ ਕਿਵ ਸਚਿਆਰਾ ਹੋਈਐ ਕਿਵ ਕੂੜੇ ਟੁੱਟੈ ਵਾਲ ਹੁਕਮ ਰਜਾਈ ਚਲਣਾ ਨਾਨਕ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਨਾਲ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।
हे गोविंद हे गोपाल हे दयाल लाल प्राणनाथ अनाथ सखे दीन दर्द निवार हे समर्थ अगम पूर्ण मोहे में अतार अंधकूप महाभयान नानक पारे तार हाय प्रभु शरणागति कृपा नित दयाल एक एक हर मन वस्त नानक हो तन हाल वाहिगुरु नाम जहाँ जय चले सो तले पार जो श्रद्धा कर सेव दे गुरु पारे अवतार नहार जो श्रद्धा कर सेव दे गुरु पारे अवतार नहार। वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह।